Welcome to the Faithful Fireside podcast.
Okay. And we're live, but we're not live.
Correct.
We're recording.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Ryder.
Maybe, right? Isn't that what you said last time?
I don't remember what we said last time.
You're a little out of it, I think.
Yeah, I guess. I'm Dr. Ryder, not Bill O'Reilly, so we're not doing it live. I'll start it like that. Is that fine? We're not going to do it live.
I love that in the office, how many times you hear people say that out loud. It happens all the time.
It happens all the time. I just think about it still. Somebody will just like, we'll do it live.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we do lots of demos and stuff at work in front of, the minor gods of the Boeing pantheon, and they'll have it'll be like a cool opportunity to show something off that we're building and trying to get like a head of steam on it, and then we'll just have to do it live. You'll do all the prep work that you possibly can, and someday it's like it's not working. We'll do it live. Yeah.
Did you watch the storms last night?
No.
Do you guys have cable?
No.
True homeschoolers.
Yeah.
I'll never forget a kid I grew up with who was homeschooled. He was on the same swim team and same church. So I saw him at Sunday school every day, every Sunday. And I remember he lived close to us, so we could go by his house. And I'll never forget the first time I was over there. I was like, "Oh, let's turn on the TV," and he was like, "It's not allowed here." I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
He's like, "We can only watch the Discovery Channel." And I was like, I get the premise even more now.
Yeah.
But like even in the 90s, I feel like it probably would have been fine, but still.
I mean, it just depends. Like,
I remember being weird as I was young. Now that I
Yeah.
get older, I'm like, I get why.
yeah.
But I remember being so caught off guard.
I mean, in the 90s, our cartoons were Rocco's Modern Life. Do you remember that?
That was one of my favorite shows.
Do you realize
There's some weird scenes.
there's some really weird stuff in Rocco's Modern Life?
And there were some older family friends of ours. Their sons were in high school when I was like first grade, second grade. And there's a couple times I'd come over and they would be watching Ren and Stimpy, and I'd be like, "This show is freaky."
Yeah. I mean, there was stuff going on, and even like Lindsay and I were talking about, hey, I bet you we could the kids could watch like Lois and Clark Superman with us, and which is like a 90s show. Dean Cain is Superman in that show, but there's like Cat Grant walking around half naked in like half of the episodes because she's just dressed like that at work because she's so thirsty trying to catch dudes, basically. And it's like, I think this might even be rated PG by the standard at the time, but she's like not wearing clothes, like she's in underwear or something. It's crazy.
So you guys have no way to watch the weather,
We do. We watch the weather on YouTube. Lots of live streamers.
Okay.
Like even like News Channel, like I think 9 does it all the time.
Have you guys thought about getting like some of the digital bunny ear stuff or no?
I thought about that a long time ago before we moved to Japan. I'm not like vehemently against TV. Like we have streaming services and stuff like
Well, I
that.
mean, just like for weather stuff or
Right.
things like that.
Right. I just like linear television is annoying.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't pay for it because it's also not cheap. But you could get the bunny ears to pick up like the free broadcast. I just haven't thought about it, in like probably 7 years now. I was really considering doing that before we moved to Japan and it just never came back up. Because in Japan we had TV. It was just like we had the free channels. Because a TV in Japan has like a card slot for like a badge, basically, kind of card. You slide that in there and it unlocks the channels and they have like multiple bands. And then on the free band, everybody gets NHK, which is like their version of PBS, basically. Yeah. So you get NHK and it's free, and as long as you have that card inside your TV, you pick it up. You don't need bunny ears. You don't have to buy anything extra. And now I'm not 100% sure if the card comes standard. Like maybe we did buy the card at one point, or it was included in the rental or something like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you just need that. So that's what we had in Japan.
Well, yeah, I know there was a big tornado that hit Enid.
Yeah.
No, I haven't heard anything yet, but they're pretty sure it clipped Vance Air Force Base. So
Right. which sometime I need to get all the details of this story because sometime we need to get on here and just do family stories or something that would be super fun. But like my granddad and Vance Air Force Base, Vance Gate at Tinker, that guy were best friends.
Okay.
Graduated West Point, the same class.
That's cool.
Yeah. So this is before the Air Force. Is how long ago that was. It was still like the Army Air Force hadn't broken off into its own branch yet. And so they went to both Oklahoma boys, same class. They were friends. Granddad came home. Vance didn't. He didn't. Now it's weird though. So we need to talk about that story because he like disappeared.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I never even looked into why we named it Vance.
Yeah.
But I assumed after somebody.
Yep. World War II era hero.
Yeah. But it was interesting seeing the coverage last night because now all the storm chasers are getting like 4K cameras.
Oh.
So they were able to like zoom in and you could see the debris in high res.
That's crazy.
So they were like, I hope this hasn't hit anything yet. And it's like obvious, like thousands of black stuff just floating. I'm like, that's obviously parts of houses, trees, like
yikes.
But yeah, I've never seen that much debris in a tornado, but I think that's probably how it is always. You just couldn't see it with the cameras back in the day.
That could be.
So yeah, it was kind of crazy.
I always think about Twister whenever we talk about what's in the tornado, like the cow. There's a cow in there. The obligatory prairie cow.
Classic scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then Dominator 3, they intercepted one just...
Is that your boy?
South of the Kansas state line.
Yeah.
West of I-35.
Okay.
They actually were backing up, and then the winds were so strong it turned their vehicle sideways, and they got stuck in the field.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, you have a topic, of course. Dr. Ryder Walton.
Don't say it like that. All right, we had to talk about something.
Educate us today.
We had to talk about something, and you're not helpful. So, we're going to talk about dragons today, which is super fun. And we're just going to talk a little bit about, where dragons came from, or how old they are, or how many cultures we can find them in. Really, all kind of the same thing. Then we'll talk about like what a dragon is, and we'll look at some examples in the Bible where we find dragons, and we'll just kind of banter back and forth like we do about all that stuff.
Okay. And then it'll eventually transition into...
Yeah, part 2 is going to be like, now that we've kind of done an investigation of dragons, like what are we going to do about it? Like what should we do? How should we live based on this symbol?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Roundabout. Okay. So this is going to be like an exercise in how to kind of symbolically think through something and reason about something, which is kind of neat because there's a lot of stuff that you can put a dragon in once you kind of know what it is, and then it makes the story way more interesting because there's a dragon in it, but also all the lessons attached to the dragon get inserted into your story. It's like a function call for programming nerds or something, or a library you can import into your story. That's pretty much what we're doing with.
And I'm mentioning this early on, so people, if they want to see part 2, they can kind of get an idea too.
Yeah.
So like this episode we could call like biblical dragons or dragons in the Bible, whatever.
Yeah. And
then the second one can be like modern day dragons.
Yeah.
Dragons in today.
Yeah, that's a good teaser for sure.
Okay.
So it'll be like mythic. We'll say like mythic dragons, which will include dragons in the Bible, and then it'll be like dragons today or something. Yeah, that's solid.
Cool.
So we just named the episodes, but that's what we'll do. So let's go then. Welcome back to our podcast. I'll do a second welcome because I messed the first one up so bad. And we're going to talk about this kind of concept that Richard Rowland and Jonathan Pageau have been working on, which is universal history, which I think is really Richard Rowland's project, but I've been following it because it's super cool. And the idea of universal history is kind of going back and looking at symbols that span lots of different locations, so you see them pop up everywhere, or even the stories that the people were telling themselves about who they were, not so much the more like skeptical scholarship of history, trying to kind of define people, based on what we can dig up.
Things that pop up across different civilizations and time periods.
Right.
Like
and then,
pyramids and floods and
yes,
all that.
Yes, things like that. Then also the people will try and root themselves in another story. So the stories that are most often used for this rooting are the flood, like you just mentioned, and Troy.
Okay.
And so this is, of course, like in the, the world that emerged as like the West in Europe, right? Primarily, that's where they're interested in grounding themselves. So dragons happen to be one of those symbols that crop up everywhere in like pretty much every culture. And it's like super duper widespread. We're talking all the way in China, Persia, Greece, like all these different places, Mesoamerica, and like in the South America, that we'd call it now, all that stuff. So you have all that going on. The cultures of that time, we're talking like thousands of years ago, presumably they didn't have any way to communicate with each other, right? You've heard that like old saying that, a long time ago, everybody lived within like 20 miles of where they were born.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even all that long ago, like probably like my great grandparents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially like in the middle of America, which my great grandparents still had an outhouse. There wasn't plumbing yet,
right?
Which means my grandparents, some of them grew up without plumbing. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of crazy.
Pretty much all my grandparents grew up without plumbing.
Right, and that might blow somebody's mind. I don't know. It seems like that's not all that long ago. And now that I'm sitting here working on AI that's built on supercomputers and uses the amount of resources it takes to power Toronto for a week to build one of these things, we're still pooping in a wood box like 2 generations ago. Right. So anyway.
Yeah, I think I told you Katie's grandfather who passed last year. Before he passed, I just bought that MetaQuest 3.
Oh, yeah.
And had him try it out, and he was just like blown away. And he was like, Kevin, I grew up with no plumbing.
Yeah.
I rode horses into town for miles.
Yep.
And he's like, now I can see the whole world through this.
Yeah.
I was just like blown away by it. Like blown away.
It's ridiculous, man, if you really think about it. So, because the dragons like crop up all over the place, they're not so much like some random story monster. Like we have to kind of treat them more seriously than that. We don't have just like this one occurrence from this one place of this thing. It's not like some American cryptid like the chupacabra.
More serious than giants?
No. Nothing is more serious than giants.
We have to do an episode on that.
We'll have to talk about
I have so many questions.
Yeah, we have to talk about that because I was just trying to teach like one of our new hires and new friends about giants just yesterday. This is like on par with giants.
Okay.
They're very serious. So anyway, there's some common things about the dragons that you see sort of regardless of where you find them. They have wings or the ability to fly. They have serpentine bodies in some way. And those two things, they end up linking them to like water or to storms, or flying has to do with storms. Storms is water and air at the same time. So there's kind of this hybridization already with some of the things that they're connected to.
Okay.
And we'll get deeper into that. So a long time ago, ancient Near East, there's Persian dragons and there are Chinese dragons. And it's not super clear. People could maybe argue about it. They seem to be totally distinct, but Persia, like Iran and China, are not horridly far, right? The trade roads go through there eventually, and there's going to be some mingling of culture that we wouldn't necessarily think about, like Silk Road type stuff through Persia into China, right? So there is this connection that's eventually going to form. And so there's probably going to be some amount of mixing of the imagery. But when we say like ancient Near East, we're thinking of like Mesopotamia area And so that's like where you have the god Marduk, which like Jordan Peterson has spent tons of time talking about, and Tiamat, the chaos dragon, which I think is even in 12 Rules for Life. Like that story comes from the Enuma Elish. That is a pretty that's become popular, that narrative. And we'll talk about that more in our heroes episode because we have to kind of address Marduk. So then there's the Tiamat is a good example of like this chaos dragon creature. So that's one, and that's from like one of the earliest creation stories we have. So we're talking like thousands of years ago. Chinese have a similar thing that they had, and we found images on pottery and some ritual object from like the Neolithic era, which is like Stone Age basically, right? And they have dragons on them, and then by the Shang and Zhou dynasties, which is like 3,000 years ago, like more. So like I don't know how much more, but it's over 3,000 years ago. Then you have that distinct Chinese dragon that has like the deer antlers and is the hybrid of a bunch of different antlers. It's basically a fully formed idea already. It's tied to imperial
the long,
authority.
slinky dragons,
like the one on the table.
Yeah,
this guy right here.
The 3D printed dragon.
Yes. Except for instead of having like a crystal crown, he'll have like
the ones that are in all the Studio Ghibli and like Spirited Away.
Yes, Spirited Away dragon, exactly.
Always thought those were so strange because it's not my culture, right? Dragons, I think of Medieval Knight or Smog or
So we'll definitely get to those. What some people might just say the Western style dragon, right?
There you go.
Yeah, for sure. So then I mentioned the trade routes probably blending like the Persian dragon myths and some of the old Near Eastern myths and the Chinese myths kind of being exposed to each other through trade routes eventually. But it just seems like even in that spot where we can identify that blending, that seems to be later and newer than the dragon artifacts that we have. So that's kind of interesting that they're kind of cropping up. The Enuma Elish and that Mesopotamian style dragon, the Tiamat, when that kind of spreads off westward, that becomes more of like the origin point for like the Western dragon, right? It's a chaos monster, so it's evil. So you go out west, you'll see the Greek gods, and the gods fight these monsters because they made Gaia really upset. Gaia in the Greek myth is the Earth Mother, so like everything crawls out of Gaia pretty much, right? Like the life does. And her original husband is Uranus, and that guy, they have some kids that become include like Cronus. Cronus is Zeus's father. Cronus ends up overthrowing Uranus, castrates him, and runs him off because you have to castrate the prior god to make them ineffective, basically.
Okay.
So he starts eating his children so that whenever he has children, they can't overthrow him and do the same thing.
Logical.
Right, exactly. So eat the children. So Zeus gets hidden so that doesn't happen to him.
Okay.
And he comes and overthrows and castrates Cronus. And then all the Titans, as a part of this, who kind of precede the Zeus's generation of gods, are all cast into Tartarus, except for like Prometheus and one other, right? So
90s Hercules makes more sense now.
Yeah. Yes, that's why the Titans come back to kill. Yes, because and Gaia gets super upset because her children, the Titans, were cast into Tartarus, which is the bad part of hell, or Hades.
Yeah.
And then she starts bringing forth monsters, right? And so some of those monsters are like Typhon, and these are sort of like winged. Typhon's like a winged snake-bodied enemy of Zeus, and so then the gods have to like slay the monster, right? This hybrid thing that the earth is sending after them just to avenge her kids.
Okay.
There's also Ladon or Ladon, which is a dragon that winds around Hera's garden, which is the garden of the Hesperides, is what it's called. Hesperides are like nymphs. Nymphs are like forest women, or water women, right? The nymphs. Yeah. So the Hesperides and Ladon guard her garden, which is filled with golden apples. And so that kind of begins to get more into like this idea that we have in the West. That's kind of a seed of it, where the dragon is a guardian of a thing. And we have that, that's actually universal, but the idea as that kind of grows is golden apples, dragon guards the thing, dragon setting on a hoard of just gold, that's kind of emerging through that tradition there. What's kind of interesting is you can't tell, if you go back and look, at least as far as I couldn't find like which one is older, like which dragon tradition of all the different locations. It's kind of a tie that we can't really break. So you've got super ancient Mesopotamian and Iranian, like Persian dragon beings, which include like Tiamat, and you've got super ancient dragon imagery and like the Stone Age and early China. We have, pictures of them on being like the Ishtar Gate, which is like a location in Babylon. And they're just there. Long time ago. Don't know who's first.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say based on the culture of the time and like who invented the dragon. Is anybody copying anybody else? There seems to be something about the symbol of the dragon. It's so ubiquitous that what it symbolizes must be true, right? It's an image to capture some kind of structural thing built into society.
Yeah.
Right. So super cool. The idea really then is not to just look at all these different dragon stories and collect them, but to kind of figure out like, what are all these things trying to teach us? What do they reveal about heaven and earth and chaos and order